Garrick is a strangely awkward unit to think about. What was once thought to be an easy button to pick up and use has seemingly sank to the realms of just fine enough. Now don't get me wrong, Garrick is obviously still quite good in very obvious ways, but he no longer feels exciting, if you catch my drift. So why does the Chief fail to win over our hearts in this day of age? Well, heat up your hot chocolate, because I, Eat Your Greens, will dive into that dilemma. I remember my first playthrough of Sacred Stones, and my introduction to the one and only Garrick. Here we have a chill AF dude slamming enemies with a steel blade of all things. You see that he's carrying a hero's crest, and it becomes clear to you that you want to get this man into a promoted class as soon as possible. Now, we could go Ranger, but we just got this salty sniper who's going to be hoarding all the bows, so let's pick Hero for hand axe spam instead. With access to 1-2 range, Garrick storms through the route maps of Erica Route and proves why he's known as the Chief, or Desert Tiger, or whatever. Eventually, he'll gain the axe rank to use the S rank axe, Garm, which allows him to plow through the late game and even destroy the final boss. Seems like a good unit to me. I can't wait to use Garrick in my next playthrough. Well, that playthrough, which was an FM route hard mode Iron Man, came and went, and I didn't really like him that much.
Honestly, Garrick was like not great. He tanked a lot of axe users, otherwise he didn't do anything.
Then I did an Erica route Iron Man and liked him a bit better, but he wasn't the demigod I remember him being. Eventually I did this pseudo self-draft where I didn't even bother picking him at all because I just didn't see how he could possibly bring value to my team. I fell out of love with Garrick. First things first, I don't value Garrick that high on FM route. He joins too little, too late on a route where you get stronger project options and Dusel much earlier. So that leaves us with Erica route, which features a lot of aspects that allow the Merc to shine. Garrick is a fairly simple unit. His role is to be a combat beast, which goes hand in hand with the myriad of route maps you face on Erica's path. You give him an inventory of hand axes and watch him go to town. And that's it. Keep in mind, you still have Seth. You still have other units that are also pretty good, especially your mounted units, who trade Garrick's overkill combat with overpowered movement options. Additionally, on Village of Silence, you're given Saleh, who's essentially the Chief's magical counterpart, but also has the benefit of staff utility. All of these, in my opinion, make a better case for deployment in the late game compared to Garrick, who pretty much fails to keep up at that point, and leaving him stuck as a unit that's only just good enough to be a mid-game brawler. However, we don't have to settle for enough with Garrick. We can push him further. He can be a boss killer. Well, this is pretty lame. Garrick can fail to reach doubling thresholds due to his rather unimpressive speed growth, which can really bog down some of these fights. Now, the Chief does start performing better in this role once he gains access to Garm, although, to be honest, I prefer using Myrrh as my boss killer in the late game because, I don't know, I think it's cooler. Also, Myrrh flies. Garrick has his boots on the ground, and good luck moving him without a warp staff, because his 15 con prevents him from being ferried around by pretty much everyone, unless you kept an unpromoted Vanessa or Tana. So if Garrick isn't kinda spicy in his more traditional use cases, why not experiment? Well, there is Ranger, which is a valid option, and while you certainly can do that, I personally don't see the immediate benefits in doing so on Erica route, unless you're really into having an Elliewood archetype. Plus, I got something far more insufferable in mind. That's right, Garrick sucks. He's demoted into project status. We're going to leave him unpromoted and have him use this time to rehabilitate some of his lacking stats with a faster EXP gain. And to ensure we don't chicken out and promote him early like some meta sheep, we're giving his hero crest to Joshua. This way, Garrick has to wait for Johanna Palace for the second one to arrive. Alright, let's see our reward for putting up with a sword lock unit in FE8. He performs exactly the same. Well, this sucks. While there's certainly some amusement in watching Garrick's unpromoted animations, I wouldn't really call it an extremely groundbreaking experience. You don't really get the high of, say, training up a more traditionally bad unit, because Garrick is already too overqualified to be a project unit. In the end, I felt I had sandbagged for several chapters and got a very slightly better product of something I could have gotten way earlier. I found myself more invested in finding quirky things to do with Swordmaster Joshua than actively trying to train up Garrick. Using Merc Garrick is not unlike using the other unpromoted cav when you already have used your first Knight's Crest. Sure, they're fulfilling a task, but truth be told, to what end do you really want to keep them around for? Garrick exists in a weird place. He doesn't start so terrible that you feel rewarded for training him up. Yet, he's not so good that he feels like a force of nature for more than 2 chapters. The chief does not fly, he doesn't get warp, he's not there for the early game, he's not there on Distant Blade annoyingly enough, he's probably not your best boss killer in the late game, he's not great on FM route, he's not Seth. So what is he? Is he enough? Is Garrick secretly just low on foot? Well, maybe kinda no. There's nothing stopping you from souping up your Garrick to make him a hard carry. FE8 is not such a difficult game that you're punished for trying to do that with him. Or with any unit really. However, therein lies the real dilemma. What motivates you to do that with Garrick? To be honest, I labored on this question for a long time, trying to think up of some profound revelation that would open my third eye to a newfound Garrick technique that boosts him to Seth tier. But ultimately, I came to this conclusion. You don't need to love Garrick. If you don't find Garrick appealing as a unit, there's nothing stopping you from only using him while he's still enough or just not using him at all. As much as the cop-out is to say, it's your playthrough, and thus you get to dictate which units you deploy and which units you underscore as your favorite based on your preferences. As I matured as an FE player, trust me, I reevaluated what I deemed to be important when it came to units I like. I myself tend to favor Dusel, who by all accounts is probably just the same freaking unit as Garrick, but you know, he's a great knight, he has cool red armor, which means he's a Lapis archetype, and he saved my butt on a couple challenge runs. Sure, he has the same problems as Garrick, if not suffering from them even worse, but he's my forever unit. There are 33 playable units in the main campaign of Sacred Stones, so you're bound to find your forever unit as well. And if that's Garrick, more power to ya. I've just fallen out of love with the chief, and that's perfectly fair, in my opinion. Reality sucks. He seems busy anyway.